let us set the stage briefly before we dive into the deep end. Jason has returned to town, which is a massive event in itself, but this time, he did not walk back into our lives alone. He brought a shadow with him. This young man, Tristan, was initially introduced to us under the guise of a highly classified, incredibly dangerous mission. Jason sold him to the rest of the town as a covert operative, a partner in the lethal dance that Jason knows all too well. On the surface, it made perfect sense. Jason always needs someone watching his back, especially after recently taking the fall for Rocco and being whisked away to a secret intelligence location. But if you have been watching closely, you knew from the very first frame that this was a cover story. The tension between them was simply too thick, the unspoken communication too intimate for mere colleagues. Tristan carries himself with a specific kind of heavy, burdened energy that feels eerily familiar to anyone who has watched this show for a long time. He does not just walk into a room. He assesses the exits, measures the threats, and calculates the odds of survival before he even takes a single breath. It is a survival mechanism, a hypervigilance that you do not just learn in a generic training camp. It is bred into your bones. We watched Jason operate exactly like this for his entire adult life, acting as a stoic sentinel forever standing guard against a world that constantly wants to destroy him. Seeing that exact same icy composure in Tristan was our first real clue that we were not just looking at a new sidekick. We were looking at a mirror image. This is where it gets incredibly interesting. The writers did not just drop the biological bombshell immediately and expect us to accept it. They let it simmer. They allowed us to watch Tristan react to the chaos of the town, giving us subtle, brilliant breadcrumbs of his true nature. Notice how his protective instincts flare up instantly, almost involuntarily, whenever someone vulnerable is in the room. He possesses that same quiet, lethal calm in the face of absolute terror. There is a specific moment where the tension in a room spikes, and Tristan shifts his weight, dropping his center of gravity, his eyes deadening into that terrifying shark-like stare. It is the exact same physical language Jason uses right before he dismantles a threat. You do not learn that specific brand of lethal grace from a textbook. You inherit it through your bloodline. Furthermore, the subtle hints of his fragmented childhood memories elevate this from a simple physical resemblance to a complex psychological puzzle. Tristan has these vague, hazy recollections of a harbor town, of specific smells and sounds that align perfectly with the docks of our beloved city. He dismisses them as strange dreams or the tricks of a transient, unstable childhood, but we know better. These are the repressed echoes of a life he was stolen from, a life that was erased by the adults around him before it could even begin. The show is masterfully showing us the ghost of a childhood that never happened, haunting a young man who does not even know who or what he is mourning. But the true genius of this storyline is not just the undeniable connection to Jason. It is the magnetic, almost supernatural pull between Tristan and Emma. Emma has always been incredibly perceptive. Just look at how she is currently dealing with the frantic disappearance of Gio. She knows instantly when the atmosphere in the room shifts and when something is terribly wrong. Yet with Tristan, her usual anxiety and caution are replaced by a bizarre, unexplainable comfort. They share these quiet scenes where the dialogue is minimal, but the emotional volume is absolutely deafening. They finish each other's thoughts, they anticipate each other's movements, and there is an implicit, immediate trust that defies all logic. It is a masterclass in portraying a sibling bond without the characters actually knowing they are siblings. We often talk about soulmates in the romantic sense, but there is a biological soul tie between siblings that the universe simply refuses to ignore. Emma feels completely safe around a literal operative, a man who by all accounts should terrify her given her family's history with violence. Why? Because her DNA recognizes its counterpart. The tragedy of their interactions is that they are building a beautiful friendship on a foundation of massive, life-altering deception. Every shared smile, every moment of vulnerability is a ticking time bomb waiting to detonate. And then the explosion finally happens. The DNA test confirms what our guts have been screaming for weeks. Tristan is Jason's biological son. But the writers were not satisfied with just one massive earthquake. They wanted to shatter the tectonic plates entirely. The revelation of Tristan's mother is the twist that elevates this narrative into legendary, unforgettable territory. Robin, the brilliant, unwavering moral compass of the town, the woman who has always stood for truth, for science, for doing the right thing in the face of overwhelming darkness. To discover that she is the mother of this hidden, damaged young man is a narrative whiplash that I am honestly still recovering from. Why would she do it? Why would a woman who defines herself by her fierce love and absolute integrity abandon her own flesh and blood to a clandestine witness protection network? You have to look at the history, at the sheer volume of international threats, intelligence agency, corruption, and mob violence that constantly surrounded her and Jason. Think about the era when this child would have been conceived. Robin was likely targeted by ruthless syndicates, navigating the lethal crossfire of Jason's underworld duties and her own family's heavy intelligence legacy, constantly stalked by monsters like Caesar. She made the ultimate agonizing calculation. Her presence in the child's life was a guaranteed death sentence. To save him, she had to completely erase him. She had to let the world, and perhaps even Jason at the time, believe the child never existed. It is a sacrifice so massive it almost feels entirely cruel. Now, I have to pause here and argue with myself for a second, because this is a tough pill to swallow. Is this a fundamental betrayal of Robin's core character? I have spent hours wrestling with this exact thought. Part of me screams that Robin would never, ever walk away from her baby. She is the woman who fought through devastating illness, brutal kidnapping, and supposed death just to get back to her family. Handing her newborn over to faceless intelligence agents feels entirely antithetical to the fiercely maternal woman we know and love. It feels, at times, like the writers might be bending her legacy to fit a shocking plot point, sacrificing her established integrity just for the sake of a jaw-dropping Friday cliffhanger. But then, I look at the other side of the coin. Trauma makes people do unthinkable, horrific things in the name of love. If Robin truly, deeply believed that holding her son would eventually put a sniper's bullet in his head, wouldn't the most maternal thing in the universe be to let him go? The mob life Jason leads is a violent black hole that swallows everyone who gets too close. Robin knew that better than anyone alive. By erasing her son, she gave him the one thing Jason could never offer, a chance at a normal, safe life. Or so she desperately thought. The tragic, heartbreaking irony of this entire situation is that the network she trusted turned him into a lethal weapon anyway. The very life of violence, secrecy, and danger she tried to save him from is exactly the life he was forced to adopt just to survive his upbringing. Robin's ultimate sacrifice was entirely in vain, and the psychological weight of that realization is going to be absolutely devastating to watch unfold. When Jason finally stands before the town and speaks the truth, the fallout is nothing short of apocalyptic. This is not a warm, tearful family reunion with sweeping orchestral music playing in the background. It is a scene of utter, suffocating devastation. Emma's reaction is the emotional anchor of this entire fallout. She looks at the parents she idolized, the family structure she trusted implicitly, and sees nothing but strangers. The betrayal she feels is palpable through the screen. Her entire life, her identity as an only child, the memories she holds so dear, they are all permanently tainted by this massive, suffocating lie. How do you ever look at your family the same way when you realize they have the capacity to hide a living, breathing human being for decades? And then there is Tristan. If you thought Jason was going to easily slide into the role of a wise mentor and loving father, you are vastly underestimating the rage of an abandoned child. Tristan does not want a father now. He wants answers, and more importantly, he wants someone to bleed for the years of isolation and danger he endured alone. He looks at Jason not with awe or respect, but with a deep, searing resentment. Jason's clumsy attempts to build a bridge are met with cynical, hardened walls. Tristan was raised by ghosts and handlers. He does not know how to be a son, and he certainly does not want to be a mob prince. The friction between them is electric, a constant, exhausting battle of wills between two men who are too stubborn and too broken to simply hug it out. Of course, in this universe, massive secrets never just cause emotional damage. They inevitably invite physical danger. The moment Tristan's true identity is exposed to the light, the protective bubble Robin sacrificed her soul to build is violently popped. An old, ruthless enemy from Jason's past, someone who intimately remembers the blood spilled decades ago, realizes that the supposedly invincible enforcer finally has a highly vulnerable target. Tristan is no longer just a skilled operative moving in the shadows. He is the biological heir to a violent throne. He instantly becomes the ultimate pawn in a sick revenge plot that has been marinating in hatred for years. This forces Jason into the most excruciating corner of his entire life. He has spent his existence protecting the Syndicate, shielding his boss, and maintaining the fragile, bloody balance of power in the underworld. But now, the war is knocking directly on his son's door. Jason is forced to choose between the blind loyalty that defines his career and the blood that demands his absolute protection. Can he be the ruthless, unfeeling enforcer and a desperate, loving father at the exact same time? History tells us no. Every single time Jason tries to balance the two worlds, someone innocent ends up in a body bag. The stakes have never been this intimate, and the enemy knows exactly how to exploit Jason's newly discovered heart. We are watching the complete, unvarnished deconstruction of a legend. Tristan is not just a new face brought in to spice up the viewing schedule. He is the physical manifestation of all the sins, all the compromises, and all the agonizing choices Jason and Robin have made over the years. He is the bill finally coming due, and the cost is astronomical. As the crosshairs center on this newly fractured family, we are left wondering if the truth will ultimately set them free, or if it will be the very thing that buries them forever. This is where the story truly gets dark, guys. And honestly, I am terrified to see who survives the fallout.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.